Hello, and welcome to the fourth episode of The Grey Warrior's Heart. This will perhaps be one of the most mentally demanding lecture I ever did so far. So please make sure that your mind is wide open. In this episode, I want to speak about equilibrium. Everything in life is about balance. If there is balance, there is harmony. Harmony leads to growth and evolution. Harmony leads to life. Now, if there is imbalance, there is chaos. Chaos leads to decrease and devolution. Chaos leads to death. Now look at the world of today and tell me, is it in a state of balance or is it in a state of imbalance? Depending from which perspective we decide to see things, we could say that the world is in state of balance and it is also in state of imbalance. From a luminous perspective, from natural law perspective, everything is perfect. Everything is in divine order. Everything is in state of balance. Equilibrium can be found. Now from a darkness perspective, everything is degrading. Everything is so imperfect. Everything is so chaotic. Everything is in states of imbalance. Now, what is equilibrium? Equilibrium is the perfect point of balance between two polar opposites. Equilibrium is stability. Equilibrium is stillness. Let's have a look at the Hermetic principle of polarity. Two polar opposites, two sides, two extremes, giving birth to duality. Now the trap of duality is to get sucked into one polar opposite or into the other polar opposite, because this will create an imbalance. From the light perspective, everything is light, and there is no other true than the light itself. From the dark perspective, everything is dark, and there is no other truth than darkness itself. By keeping our search for the perfect equilibrium between light and darkness, the Grey Warrior acknowledged that both light and darkness hold truth, and that both light and darkness hold deception, and that it is up to our own individual perception and interpretation via the free will of choice. When we find a balance between light and darkness, our mind gets deeper and deeper, and we start realizing certain things. That there is deception within truth, and there is truth within deception. yin and yang. There is some yin in yang, and there is some yang in yin. Have you never asked yourself what the little yang dot within the yin and what the little yin dot within the yang stood for? For example, there is a small amount of fear in unconditional love. This little dot of fear within the heart is the spark of destruction within the spark of creation. Another example, there is a small amount of unconditional love in fear. This little dot of unconditional love is the spark of creation within the spark of destruction. Everything is a paradox. Light and darkness are contradictory, yet both are coexisting. Which one holds the truth? Both and none. Angels can experience fear, and this would lead to the great fall of consciousness. We all went through this and will go through this again and again, forever and ever and ever. This is the infinite spiritual cycle of the soul. Demons can experience unconditional love, and this would lead to the rise of consciousness. We all went through this and will go through this again and again, forever and ever and ever. This is the infinite spiritual cycle of the soul. This is the natural cosmic cycle of consciousness, the natural universal cycle of light and darkness within our consciousness. Once the hermetic principle of rhythm is grasped, we realize that everything is an infinite giant cycle made of infinite smaller cycles, made of smaller cycles and smaller cycles, cycles within cycles. It never started and will never end. It has always been and will always be. Everything is spiral learning. We keep the rotation of cycles within cycles within cycles, and we keep coming to the same lessons over and over and over again until we are ready to move on. This is our learning and evolutionary pattern. Excuse me. We, the unlimited conscious awareness, should be the perfect equilibrium between our higher self, call it super self or best version of ourself, in perfect equilibrium between our higher self and our lower self, call it ego self or worst version of yourself, of ourself. If we follow the teachings of the higher self, we raise our vibration and reach higher realms of consciousness. If we follow the teachings of the lower self, we lower our vibrations and we drop to lower realms of consciousness. If we merge with the higher self, the teachings become deeper and deeper. If we merge with the lower self, the teachings become deeper and deeper. Whatever we feed with the light of our consciousness is what will grow. Remember, repetition is the mother of all skills. Regardless of what side we choose, dark side or luminous side, there will always be positive balance, negative balance, positive imbalance, negative imbalance, and finally the equilibrium between balance and imbalance. For example, if we choose the luminous side and we choose to merge with the higher self, we get a positive imbalance. Example 2. If we choose the luminous side and we choose to merge with the lower self, we get negative imbalance. Example 3. If we choose the dark side and we choose to merge with the higher self, we get a negative imbalance. Example 4. If we choose the dark side and we choose to merge with the lower self, we get a positive imbalance. Example 5. If we choose the luminous side and we choose to embody the unlimited conscious awareness that we are, and to experience both the light, the luminous side, and the dark side simultaneously, the higher self and the lower self, then we get a positive balance. Example 6. If we choose the dark side and we choose to embody the unlimited conscious awareness that we are, and to experience both sides simultaneously, the higher self and the lower self, we then get a negative balance. The possibility that comes with the conscious choice of embodying the unlimited conscious awareness that we are is stillness, selflessness, or choiceless awareness, as Jiddu Krishnamurti likes to put it. The perfect equilibrium, the pure original consciousness. Bruce Lee once spoke about unnatural naturalness and natural unnaturalness. Now you should be able to grasp the concept of the light and darkness and know that ultimately there is a bit of darkness in light and there is a bit of light in darkness, depending on your level of perception. In that sense, there is no right or wrong, but right and wrong do exist. And there is some right and wrong, and there is some wrong in right. Did I lose you yet? These concepts are very difficult to understand, understand, and overstand on the level of the mind. Once the Hermetic principle of polarity is fully grasped, we realize that in unity there is also duality. And once we find the equilibrium between the two polar opposites, then duality becomes unity once more. Equilibrium is our return to unity consciousness, the realm of non-judgmental and choiceless awareness. Left and right, hot and cold, sharp and dull, hard and soft, etc., are but two opposite aspects of the same thing. They are the same thing, but various in degree. The exploration of both sides, all the way up to the extremes, will give us proper insights on the nature of these two polar opposites, and therefore will give us proper insight on where to look for the balance between the two. The further the exploration of both extremes, the more accurate the balance between the two becomes. Using the analogy of the skateboard, when we are beginners, we try to ride our skateboard, but we have no balance. So we will keep falling again and again and again, until after enough trials and errors, we finally find the right balance. When we find the right balance, then we find stability, and we no longer fall. We first learn to ride our skateboard in easy condition, flat surface in sunny weather. As we get more experienced, we learn to ride our skateboard in difficult conditions, hills and slopes in windy and rainy weather, or on icy surface. The perfect equilibrium will allow us to ride our skateboard in any condition. The perfect equilibrium is mastery level, mastery of the balance between energies. Now, using the analogy of the line, if we draw a line, we imagine that it has two polar opposites, which wouldn't be a very accurate representation since this line is infinite. In other words, the line has no beginning and no ending. But our feelings will give us a quite accurate measure of both polar opposites. Now we continue to visualize this line, and as we get closer and closer to the center of this line, we decide to zoom in. We zoom in. We zoom in to infinity. The more we zoom in, the more accurate our balance between the two polar opposites becomes. And it is at that point that we realize that we could zoom in forever and ever and ever, and there would still be a more accurate version of the equilibrium we seek. In a sense, perfection doesn't really exist. It is just an idea, because the truth is that there will always be room for improvement. This is the infinite and beautiful fractal nature of the universe. No beginning, no end, infinity. We could dive forever and ever and ever, into the very fabric of reality and still find something inside, a deeper level to it. Just like breaking a particle down and realizing that there will always be something infinitely smaller within. As above, so below. As below, so above. As within, so without. As without, so within. Looking into the Hermetic principle of correspondence, we realize that there will always be a frequency above and below the one we are experiencing, and that our unlimited conscious awareness, gifted with free will, can travel through these frequencies forever and ever and ever. As above, so below. As below, so above. Now let's look at the Hermetic principle of vibration. Nothing is at rest and everything vibrates. Everything is energy vibrating at a certain frequency, to each his own vibration. Organic fabric, wood fabric, metal fabric, plastic fabric, gas fabric, light fabric, even color have their own frequency at which they vibrate. The source of creation sends the signal so that energy knows at what frequency to vibrate in order to give form to different types of matter. The real skill is to find stillness within motion and motion within stillness. A skill that Mother Nature and Father Cosmos have mastered. Like a wheel spinning so fast that it seems motionless, when in fact it isn't. At that point, the wheel is in perfect equilibrium between motion and stillness. It is still, but yet it is also in motion. Can you start grasping that every single thing in existence has a paradox attached to it, and that our perception depends strongly on our level of understanding of natural laws of creation? This is the power of the universe and multiverses. This is also the power of the experienced spiritual, mental, and emotional alchemist. Finding the perfect equilibrium and remaining in balance. Finding stability within equilibrium and equilibrium within stability. Now let's speak about the outer equilibrium and the inner equilibrium. The outer equilibrium is natural, universal equilibrium governed by natural laws of creation. Once again, the Hermetic principle of rhythm and its natural cycles. The universal heartbeat is directly linked to the universal breath, just like the 4 seasons. Seeds know when to grow into plants. Plants know when to grow into trees. Trees know when to grow into fruits. Fruit knows when to ripe and fall and release the seeds in order to continue the natural cycle of life. The evolution of stars follow the exact same universal principle, and so does the evolution of consciousness. We must make the conscious decision to synchronize with natural law of nature. so that we can evolve on a personal level as a sovereign soul residing in a sentient human being gifted with mental, emotional, physical, and sexual abilities, so that we can evolve as a species. Now, what are the natural laws of creation? We can have a look at the 7 Hermetic principles from the Kybalion, from Hermetic teachings. The principle of mentalism, the principle of correspondence, the principle of vibration, the principle of polarity, the principle of rhythm, the principle of causation, and the principle of gender. Now, I suggest that you study the Kybalion if you want to understand these universal principles in depth. But I'm going to give you a small representation of each. The principle of mentalism. The universe is mental, as everything else. We have been created within the universal mind. We exist in the mind of God, just as God exists in our mind, because the universe is a giant mirror reflecting the reflection of a reflection of a reflection of the energy that we introduce to it. What we put in is what we get out. Now, the principle of correspondence. What is happening in the cosmos is happening right within our DNA at a molecular level. The microcosmos within the macrocosmos, and the macrocosmos within the microcosmos. Once again, as above, so below, as below, so above, as within, so without, and as without, so within. The principle of vibration. Everything vibrates, nothing is at rest. Matter is energy vibrating at a given frequency. The chair we sit on, the car we drive, the cell phone we use to communicate, the color of things, the smell, even the sound is energy vibrating at a certain frequency. The principle of polarity. I am certain that I have more than explained this principle in this recording, but once again, everything has 2 polar opposites. These 2 polar opposites are aspects of the same thing, but different in degree. There is duality within unity and unity within duality. This principle is very useful for the spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, and sexual alchemist. The principle of rhythm. Everything holds a perfect rhythm. The measure of the pendulum shift to the right is the measure of the pendulum shift to the left. Just like waves, exactly like waves. What goes around must come around. What has left us must eventually return in order to go again and come back again to infinity. The principle of cause and effect. Every cause every cause has its effect, and every effect has its cause. Since the universe is a giant mirror, whatever we put in, the cause will be coming back as a result, the effect. The concept of chance is no longer real when we truly understand, and overstand the inner workings of natural, universal, cosmic laws of creation. The principle of gender. Everything in existence possesses both masculine and feminine characteristic. On a physical level, gender manifests in form of sex. But in higher realms, gender manifests in higher forms. The emotional, the mental, and the spiritual realms all have both masculine and feminine principles and characteristics manifesting within them. Now, the carefully laid and minutiously applied system created by those dark entities running the society we live in today is designed to make us go against natural laws of creation, and that in order to disconnect us from our hearts, to disconnect us from ourselves, to disconnect us from each other, and ultimately to disconnect us from the universe. Now, inner equilibrium. The inner equilibrium is the equilibrium of our inner world, our personal, spiritual, mental, and emotional equilibrium. Now let's observe our inner universe, shall we? Is our soul in tune with natural laws of creation? Yes, it is. Are we in touch with our soul as a species? Not yet, unfortunately. Are our thoughts in line with natural laws of creation? No, not yet, unfortunately. Are our emotions in line with natural laws of creation? No, not yet, unfortunately. Are our feelings in line with natural laws of creation? No, not yet, unfortunately. Are we in harmony with Mother Nature? Do we follow her principles? No, not yet, and that's very sad. Why is all that? Because our judgment is clouded by darkness, and we are therefore unconscious. Because we are in a constant state of imbalance, mental, emotional imbalance leading to physical imbalance. Because we haven't found the equilibrium yet. Balance between light and darkness, day and night, good and evil, male and female principle. Balance between the two hemispheres of the prefrontal neocortex. Balance of mental and emotional states, anger and happiness, joy and sadness, calmness and excitement, fear and courage. It either leads to mental chaos or mental harmony. Mental chaos leads to a lower vibrations and leading to a negative loop. Mental harmony leads to a rise of our vibration and leads to a positive loop. Emotional chaos versus emotional harmony. Emotional chaos leads to a lowering of our vibrations and leading to a negative loop. Emotional harmony leads to a rise of our vibration and leads to a positive loop. Harmony comes to us with a respect and therefore perfect reflection of natural laws. In other words, don't go against nature. Why would you? Yet, the human race seem to do just that. Now, using the analogy of the ship in the sea storm, I have used this analogy in my first recording. I want to break it down in a different way so that it is easier for you to understand it. The sailor of your ship is the soul that you are. The ship is the vessel that you are, your body. The steering wheel is the free will of choice. And the sea storm is the hardship of life that you have to face. A master sailor will manage to keep his ship up and stable in any weather conditions. The advanced alchemist will manage to keep still within the hardships of life. He or she will find stillness within motion and motion within stillness. He or she will find the perfect equilibrium. The power of the advanced alchemist is the art of transmutation of mental and emotional states. How do we turn anger into happiness in a fraction of a second? Now, using the analogy of the DJ mixing table. If you look at a DJ mixing table and you see that there are different buttons, I want to speak about these sliding buttons, these buttons that you can slide from up to down. Let's imagine that the upward button position is anger and that the downward button position is joy. Just slide the button down to transmute anger into joy in a fraction of a second. When we can do this, then we have found the Philosopher's Stone. Now, what is the Philosopher's Stone? The Philosopher's Stone is not a stone. It is a state of consciousness that can manifest anything at will. In this state of consciousness, our word is so powerful that we completely believe in anything we say. In that state of consciousness, we have the ability to convince ourselves at will, and we can therefore manifest anything at will, anything at all. So we must find the Philosopher's Stone in order to find the most powerful word that there is, our word. Now, using the analogy of the two wheels, the analogy of focusing on the old versus focusing on the new. Now visualize two big wheels side by side. The negative wheel spinning counterclockwise and the positive wheel spinning clockwise. And if you are a very negative person, if we are a negative person, then we realize that the negative wheel spinning counterclockwise is spinning faster than the positive wheel spinning clockwise. Now, choosing to see things from the luminous perspective, we can focus on stopping the negative wheel from spinning counterclockwise by trying to make it spin clockwise. That would be focusing on the old, because it has already happened. The negative wheel is already spinning counterclockwise. Alternatively, we can focus on spinning the positive wheel clockwise so that it spins faster than the negative wheel. That would be focusing on the new. This is a good way to counterbalance the two energies. Once again, what are the consequences of imbalance? Chaos. What are the consequences of chaos? Duality, opposition, war, hunger, death, slavery, manipulations, lies, theft. Once again, what are the consequences of balance? Harmony. What are the consequences of harmony? Unity, cohesion, peace, satisfaction, life, sovereignty, honesty, truth, and generosity. In balance, harmony between two energies can exist. In balance, duality can become unity. Unity is achieved when our unlimited conscious awareness is united with the natural laws of creation. Both sides must be explored to the extreme in order to find the perfect equilibrium. So you must find the light and you must find the darkness, and you must explore both these polar opposites to the extreme if you want to find the perfect equilibrium between the two. When we find the perfect equilibrium, we find stillness. When we find stillness, we find peace. When we find peace, we find happiness. When we find happiness, we find growth. In growth, evolution can take place. Happiness, growth, and evolution are the ultimate goals in life. Only life is important. Go and explore your psyche. Go and explore the universe. Go and explore the light side and the dark side. Find your equilibrium. Find peace. Find happiness. Find growth and evolve. I hope that you enjoyed this recording. Remember, wherever you are, I love you all. Thank you.